Well, that was a fun day of thrashing yesterday on the cooling system, but the shop has yet again gone into a little bit of disarray from all that. So let's clean up a little bit and then move on towards more with the cooling system. Not really so much the cooling system, but let's just say we're gonna work on the accessories, the heating component as well. I know I'm going to get to this at some point in time, the interior, the heating, and I really don't see any point in trying to completely fill up the car with coolant again when I know that very much so I'm going to wind up disconnecting a lot of these hoses and trying to reconstruct and redo the heating system on the car. So I'm this far into it. Let's finish this system, if you will, before we move on to something else. All right, so this will take a little bit of figuring in order to sort out, but I did spend some time looking at the old Buick diagram here of the coolant flow through the heating system, which was very helpful. And after thinking about this for a long time, I was able to write down a lot of the important points that are over here in the manual about how things flow properly. But it was too much, or too spread out that way, so I just rewrote everything down here a little bit more concisely so that we can start to break down which pipes go to where and what might be missing and what I'm going to need. So, looking here, at least at the diagram at the top, this part makes sense right there. That top delete right there, that's just been completely capped off. Oops, lost you, everybody. This guy right here, capped off, is the start of it all. That is intended to be the heater outlet. Or the heater circuit under the thermostat before the thermostat, so that immediately the warmest coolant can start making its way through the heating system, which makes sense. A line is going to come out from that and should or needs to tee into a transmission oil cooler. So here's the T, which I have not even seen or sorted out yet exactly where the inlet and outlet is for the transmission oil cooler, which probably could come later in my sorting out and discovering, because that's just a T that you can probably just cut in if you need to later on. But to continue, a line will go probably to the interior, I'm sure, to the heater temperature control, a defroster, a heater blower, which is under the seat, and then returning back to the inlet, which on this pump here is the, let's make sure I got this right. Yeah, there's the top right there. So that's where, when heating is all said and done, that's where it's going to return. The bottom pipe, which you can't see very well, but it is underneath there, and I'm touching it, that will be the return from the transmission cooler line. So we'll have a tee off of the fastest warming up solution, the heater circuit, and then a return to that lower line there when we're working with and dealing with the transmission oil cooler, which is somewhere. we'll sort that out. These were the two pipes here that were originally just a U-shaped tube, just simply an outlet and return was put there before. So that helps. I've got a little bit of an idea of where I want to start measuring for how much hose length I'm going to need. Maybe getting an idea for how many clamps and how many types of fittings that I'm going to need. That's a good start. Then, and I had to draw this all out down here, another level of complexity will wind up being the airflow through the system, which turns out this guy right here, this tube, is the main one for airflow coming in. That is to be airflow that winds up getting heated through the defroster. Somewhere in here there's going to be a manual control valve as well as an electric line for warming up some air to defrost. That'll blow up across the windshield back to the idea is to circulate back to the car. Then if we wind up doing heating needs, you actually draw air under the seat. There is a fan under the passenger side of the bench seat here where you'll draw air down and into it and then out the side in both the front direction and the back for additional heating. There's some manual valves involved inside the dash for when you're pulling these knobs in and out to have heat flow across the radiators inside there for heat. I know that's a part you can buy as a replacement. So those valves, which are mechanical valve operated off of one of the knobs in there, are probably prone to failure. And before I ever put any coolant in the system or even hook up those lines with coolant in them, there's no way that I would actually do that without making sure that the entire system's sealed. It would be a disaster to fill up a car with coolant and then realize that you have a terrible leak in the interior of the car somewhere, which I assume is a possibility. So we'll leave the system empty for right now and start working on sorting out exactly some where we're going to do some hoses and how we're going to route the plumbing, and hopefully do this in an intelligent way that doesn't make it hard to work on other parts of the car. This is where I really kind of wish I had an original restored car or something that you could look at, because the plumbing does not have very good diagrams in the manual at all about how it actually routes through the car. So we'll have to sort some things out. Hopefully there's enough remnants left of the system that I can get an idea at least of where some of this tubing originally entered and exited. So let's go ahead and start doing some discovery and sleuthing. So I've taken it out of some very hot water, and you can see that right here it has started to at least raise up a little bit, but it is not all the way out, and I'm going to heat up the water more and let's see if we can get it to finally pop all the way open, maybe to get a temperature reading. Well, that's reading around 200, and though the thermostat has definitely started to push up considerably, I wouldn't call that really open just yet. It's hard to keep it actually hot enough to keep going. So I'll watch it for a little bit longer here, and I'm pretty well satisfied that this thermostat was getting probably well up to 210, 215 degrees and still not opening. So I'd say we have a completely failed thermostat. Alright, I think we got this. So hot coolant coming out from here is going to route down and under this ductwork here, and I can see right in there, that's where your tube would lace under along the fender well. Alright, I'm with it. Okay. And then don't be persuaded by those two tubes down there. Those two right there are absolutely nothing but a to and back transmission cooler line. The more important piping is, let's see if I can get on it, that T right there, or where that all comes together. So part of it goes off to the transmission cooler, the part that disappears under the car. And let's see, following that pipe back up, let's see if I can put that down and get on this for a bit. So here's the section coming up from that T. And then right in here, you can see there's two pipes right there going into through the firewall. So that teed off section coming up right here is your hottest cooling coming out from the, or hottest coolant coming out from the pump into the firewall. Probably on the inside there would be the next segment of the system, which according to the diagram over here, if we get in on that, inside there, first thing it comes to is the heater temperature control, and that's a thermostat system in there. You can manually adjust the thermostat setting, but it's going to open and close and allow coolant to come in and out, I'm guessing, based off of what it's set at. So internally there we'll have a defroster and come back. So we've entered the cowling. We have the thermostat on the interior getting temperature readings. Coolant coming back out through here to this pipe. I don't think my lighting's showing up very good here. This is hard. I'll try doing it this way. But, yeah, right there on, if you can picture coming back out, looping around in here into this box. No doubt inside this boxed area is another radiator system for the defroster. So this is where warm air, or outside air, is going to come in through this tube, go over the radiator for defrost, and will blow up into the windshield. Right here on the other side of that radiator inside there is an outlet. This outlet goes straight down here and runs down under the car. And this is where I'm going to have to disorient people probably a little bit, but I'm going to go under the car here to show where those tubes wind up being. So right down there, those stubbed off tubes right there are a inlet and outlet to the transmission cooler. And this one goes to the under seat heating. Let's find those under the car now. All right. Get some lighting. Okay. Here we are. Hold on again. All right. So this tube that I'm on right here came out of the defroster and runs out under the car and into that guy right there. That's an underseat heater. That's a fan. I don't know if this is showing up on here very good or not for you guys, but and you can see the missing now return from the underseat heating, which will loom right there if the hose wasn't gone. This hose doesn't even run very well. It should be kind of tucked into the frame rail, but the return would go along with it. No doubt returning right next to its partner there, and up into the engine compartment and back to the water pump. This is not going to show up very well, but it's more for the comedy of it. So this little box right here, I can see if I can touch it with my pinky right here. That is they're calling that a transmission cooler. It's the dinkiest thing that I've ever seen. It has no fins. It's like a copper box. So I'm under the car now, and that is the hose that went down from the defroster radiator segment there. Came down under the car. Kind of poorly loomed along the frame rail, which it should probably be directly along it. And you're in the shadows and you can't see, so let me get some better light on this here. There we go, we'll see if that'll stay. Alright, there's exactly 1 foot underneath this car in the section that I'm at, so sorry for the jiggles and moves, but anyway, it runs up, as you can see, into another radiator section, fin section on the interior of the car. That's a box. That hub sticking down is part of the fan motor, and I don't know if it's actually connected very well, if at all, because I can kind of lift up on the whole thing there. Maybe there's screw holes along, here and other places. Once had it more cinched down. I'm not sure. Sorry for the shakes, but I'm holding this camera at a terribly awkward angle. But anyway, there is the missing return that we can all see probably. Oh my gosh, there's no room to work under here. All right, yeah, you get it. Missing return hose. That should loom back and go right under that guy right there, and then return back through the same hole and return to the water pump. Now the other line, which was very much kind of a joke, let's see if I can get any light on it. The other 2 lines are purely for transmission cooler, which I'm gonna guess, so, oh my goodness, creeper won't creep. Alright, where is this showing you? This isn't showing you anything. This box right here has, there they are. I think they're going to show up for you or not. Right behind there, right beyond there. There's your 2 lines going into a box. I'll see if I can balance this and touch it. There they are. 2 lines, 1, 2. Going into kind of a funny little box there there's 2 lines that come out of the top of this box right here that disappear into the transmission. So I'm assuming inside the transmission is another small radiator bathed in transmission fluid oil returning back into these lines. And then blinding myself, blinding everything. Well, that right there is the T going up originally into the cowling from when we were on the top side of the car. There's the two lines right here, 1 and 2, coming back, and one of them, of course, both of them actually are completely chopped off. So that's fairly straightforward. Alright, let's stop the recording and get in a much more comfortable place. So now that we're both topside here, you can see those two chopped off sections there, the right one being direct from the water pump below the thermostat, hot coolant, and the left one there being a return line from the oil cooler, for transmission oil cooler specifically, and the completely, when I say that one, that's a transmission oil cooler. And there is no return hose here yet, but there will be one coming back from under the car, from the under seat heater, that I will wind up snaking back and running right there through that little segment. And then back to the pump. So, I know what I need to do there. That's not too bad. Now the next thing to be dealt with is the condition of these hoses. So right here you can see that's pretty checked, pretty broken. There's a segment here, you know, it literally just pops in and out, and it is so hard. At first when I tapped on it, I'm like, that's gotta be, is that a plastic fitting? I don't think it is. Or maybe. It has some flex to it. It's clamped like it was a hose. It's just so hard that I think it's just cooked. I think it's cooked rubber. And even this hose here, the one coming up off of that T down there, it's just hard as a plastic. So I'll wind up replacing these, I do believe. And now I just got to figure out what all the diameters of these hoses are, but at least it looks to be that they're all similar diameter. So let's get some measuring done and we'll try to figure out what we need to buy to replace. So I was able to disconnect this hose here just to kind of confirm some things for me, but everywhere that I look, this appears to be 1/2 inch inner diameter hose. Completely, I mean, crunchy, hardened. So now it's down to trying to get an idea of exactly what total length of hose it's going to take to replace all these segments. And I'll have to buy some, I like these clamps. These are real good clamps that are on here. So I'm going to get some more of these high quality clamps and get those ordered. Although some segments, like this one here, that's a sharp turn that's on there. I don't know if I'll see if I can replace that, but that might have even been formed. I'm not sure. That one's probably in pretty good shape, to be honest. It doesn't seem to be cracked and split. But anyway, I'm going to get the tape measure out. We'll make some measurements of the runs from here to there, how long they are, and get an order formulated in my mind for how much hose this is going to take. So I went ahead, and since I've been looking through the ventilation system here, I took the connection across to see the blower motor there for the system. And we're going to do, we hooked up a 6-volt battery to it, and we'll do a test to see if it's still spinning. And Grant's holding it onto there, and hey,
Oh, it started and then it stopped. I must not have a good connection.
We need to move around.
Oh, there it goes. There it goes.
There? Oh,
Yeah, wiggle it around a little bit because it seems like every time you do it, kind of like revives. So
it needs to be scuffed up.
oh, it's
there.
gone. It's totally gone. We are moving air. Well, how pleasing is that? Motor still works. Super cool.
All right, so here's the rest of the defroster slash vent system with a couple of manual knob connections to the inside on the dash. I think the bottom one was vent, and I'm going to call that top wire coming right out of there. I think that one was the defrost, or at least in terms of vent control. Both of them pivoting on a manual wire connection there. So I'm going to take those off and try to figure out what's the best way to lube up these wires permanently, because they don't really move very well. I started to pull on the knobs on the interior, but they were so stiff that I was afraid I would break one of the knobs. So obviously the cables need quite a bit of lubrication and help, and then looks like we have quite a little interesting disaster going on inside there. And I think what I'll wind up doing is once the cables are disconnected, I'll just go ahead and take off the entire box, because it looks like it's just held on there at the top with just some regular size bolts like that all the way around. So let's see how it is in there. Alright, so here we have the old defroster heater core taken off. About 1,000 pounds of dead ladybugs down there. And then looking on the inside here, this is the core, which appears to be actually intact and not rusted too bad. The lower parts here, not the best shape. That's not good. I have a light. Okay. Well, that doesn't tell much other than there's junk. We're going to vacuum this out, clean it up, and I may put some tubes on here just to see if this can hold vacuum, if it's still a sealed system and everything, and we'll test that out on the bench and do a whole lot of vacuuming and cleanup. So there's a couple of flaps here. There's actually, it's split, and there's one pretty simple. The top one gives you heat off of the heater one, and then the bottom one gives you vent, just fresh air. Used to have rubber there, which is pretty much dead. There may have been some rubber on the top of this one. I don't know. This one doesn't really make a super good seal, that top one anyway. And definitely radiator is gross. I really don't know how much stuff is going to pass through that, so that needs a thorough cleaning. Looks like there's maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, probably just 4 screws holding the, hopefully holding that radiator type assembly in there. So I'll try to be delicate with this, because I really don't know how you would ever replace that. Alright, let's clean up. Okay, it's not as bad as what I thought it could have been, and I'm gonna clean all that up as much as I can and oil those hinges up, and maybe try to get a rubber gasket made that could form back on here like the old one did. There's a bit of rubber in there that helped try to close up and seal up there. Probably a lost cause, but I'll try it anyway. Alright, the effort really doesn't show, but we did get this off. Got it completely cleaned out, got the radiator washed out, blown out, cleaned out, all the dead ladybugs sucked up We've got 2 flaps going here. This one up here is for the heater, the defroster. Bottom one for the vent. Actually, I got them backwards. This one actually does the vent to bottom flap, and the other one there does a top flap in there. But anyway, they're hooked up and working. Turns out this one was cut off at some point in time. It was shortened. That's way too short of a cable. It was not originally that short. Someone's been doing some work with it there. It's just barely long enough. But anyway, good enough for us to go get on by with it for a while. I can work on getting a longer cable and sorting that out at another time. Super happy to get that cleaned out, and I can put the shroud back on here. Fan blower actually does work in there. That was quite a surprise. And then I'll do my final measurements as well for how much half-inch coolant hose I think I'm going to need to kind of replumb this car, and it's not too bad. I should be able to use those reuse those T-fittings and whatnot. So should be good. I'll get some parts ordered, and we'll get this coolant system buttoned back up when the parts come in. Alright, so it's another day of coolant hose and plumbing, and we have a fairly expensive but good quality heater hose. Should hopefully have enough bought that we can get this entire system replumbed. So let's get to it. Alright, underside here going to our underseat heater. We got new tightened up hoses. We're clamped along the frame rail, and it just kind of follows along into the engine compartment, and we'll go topside now for the rest. Well, we're fully plumbed and we're not leaking that I can see anywhere underneath the car. We're not leaking in the interior of the car, so that means my thermostat that's in there and the underseat heater appear to be okay. Making sure. Yeah, I don't feel any water around here pooling up. And again, it's confirming that my thermostat is working, keeping it open and cool at about 185. Down below, yeah, we're at 185, 186. I've got hot water coming through all the hoses. I can feel them getting hot. But damn, you see that down there? That is a spewing little leak out of my brand new water pump. Well, my brand new rebuilt water pump. Okay, no big deal. I'll just have to take off this stuff and probably send the water pump back. Maybe I'll tighten up on the back of it. I don't know. It should have worked right from the get-go, I would say. But anyway, I suppose the more important thing is that new thermostat is working. We are not overheating. Yeah, we're keeping temperatures real nice there. Around below the thermostat a little bit at 188, above 181. Carefully feel the lower. That's impressive. It's cool. I can't believe how much that's cooling, but I'm gonna take that as a actual true reading, true feeling there. Cold-blooded. Yeah, that's good temperature. Okay. Well, I'll shut her off here and we'll address faulty water pump tomorrow.